It will soon be the most wonderful time of year as kids return to the classroom. But what if I told you that for most children, their academic performance is not the only thing that causes anxiety in the return to school? So what are the challenges that our young students face, and how can parents and the community come alongside them to help them? Jessica Meade is a counselor with Foundations Christian Counseling, and she joins us to break down those questions and more. That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm Sam Chen. As the summer winds down, our students are preparing to return to school once again. But for many students, academic performance is just one of many things that cause anxiety. So what causes anxiety, and what are the challenges that our young students face as they prepare to go to school? And how can parents and those of us in the community help them? Jessica Meade is a counselor at Foundations Christian Counseling. She's joined us before, and it's our pleasure to welcome her back to the studio. Jessica, thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you back. And let's just start at the 30,000 foot level, real just general. I mean, we're going back to school. You've got kids of your own. You work with a lot of students, a lot of children. What's the general attitude about going back to school? We get it. No kid loves school, right? But beyond that kind of caricature, generally, what are students feeling? What have you seen as what students are feeling as they head back?
I think I see two different schools of kids. You have kids who are so excited to go back to school. They love being with their friends. Summer is great, but there's not as much structure for a lot of kids. And then there's kids that will sit in my office and say, I don't want to go back. Tell my mom to homeschool me. I won't do that for the most part, but this idea of talking to these kids, well, why don't you want to go back to school? What is it? And sometimes they can articulate it, sometimes they can't. Okay. For a lot of them, what they talk about, especially the older kids, that sometimes their parents don't understand the different pressures and things that are very different now than like when you and I were in school. And so I think it's important for parents to be mindful of what does it look like for their particular student? I have 3 children, and they're all very different. And so what might bother one doesn't bother the others.
Sure. Let me ask you about these really odd kids that love going back to school.
Yeah.
Where is that excitement coming from?
I think they really miss being with their friends every day.
Okay.
I think they miss the structure of what their days look like. When at school, Monday through Friday, you're up at 6 and you're on the bus, and it's a very regimented kind of day, versus for a lot of kids, especially older kids, they're not doing summer camp, they're too old, and so they're just kind of hanging out, and they're looking forward to going back.
Yeah. And to your point, there are some districts, not specifically in our viewing area, but especially down south, that do year-round school, and they go 3 weeks on or 4 weeks on and a week or 2 off. And part of that is to keep that structure throughout the summer, and it allows them to stay with their friends. Yeah. And there's not this 3 months that's kind of just vacant.
Right.
So, about these students that don't want to go back to school, you just hinted at this idea that it is more than I don't want to do homework.
Correct.
It's almost a dread for some students. Yes. And you said some of the students that you work with can articulate it very well. Let's start with them. What are they telling you?
Some of it's, one of the biggest things is fears of bullying. Even if they've never been bullied, there's this idea, and the schools very well did this anti-bullying campaign for years, and how to stand up to bullies and turn bullies in and don't let them kind of control you. But for some of these kids, it actually created some more anxiety because they're afraid of being bullied, even if they've never been bullied, because there's the big bad bullies that are out there. And they're just waiting to get me, kind of thing. For other kids, particularly as they get older, they're really afraid of offending people over different lifestyles and topics. And so they're afraid to even sometimes ask questions of their peers and classmates because they're afraid they're going to come across as offensive. Is
that different from, you said earlier, a lot of these challenges are different than when you and I were growing up. I mean, bullying, I guess, was always a situation, right? They always had bullies. Everybody could identify them, even if they left you alone. But is this fear of bullying, and especially this fear of saying the wrong thing, is this new? Is this a newer trend? And when did we see this start?
I think it depends. I think when we get to the fear of offending, it's around, again, older kids, classmates that might identify differently, LGBTQ plus. You know, it's so commonplace now that I think some of the students, not that they don't know how to handle it, but they're not even sure how to ask questions, because even out of genuine curiosity, like, help me understand. And so what I teach, you know, my kids or the students that I'm working with is, if you come at it with a place of an open heart and genuine curiosity, you're not really going to offend anybody. Most people want to share any number of topics if you come across open and ready to listen.
And to your point, I mean, it's not just kids, it's adults, I think, that are afraid to engage that conversation. We talk so much about cancel culture, and of course, that's another conversation for another day. But we do see the idea of, I mean, as a racial minority, where there's a lot of other racial minorities that will say, don't ask, just understand. And I always have the approach of, well, I'm sorry, if someone's not Asian and they don't ask me about my experience, how am I supposed to expect them to just understand? And it's to your point, there's a culture that almost demands that we are already there and doesn't give us the tools to get there.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you a bit about, I mean, last time you were here, we talked about COVID-19. Is that still a lingering, I mean, all the schools are reopened now. I don't think there's any of those questions. But is that impact still there with these students?
I do. I think that's where a lot of the seeds of anxiety were kind of planted, so to speak. And so I think you are still seeing, I still hear some kids say, well, what if school closes again? And I can't promise that it's not going to. I certainly hope we have come far enough in our understanding of things to not go that route, but they don't know. I mean, even just in the local schools, they'll say, take all of your stuff home. You know, don't leave it in your locker, because, you know, if something happens and you're doing school from home. And so I think that kind of breeds some anxiety also of like, well, you always have to be prepared in case school doesn't reopen. School isn't necessarily a safe place for most kids. You know, emotionally, physically, I think they do a pretty good job, but there's just a lot for the kids to worry about.
And to your point, they've certainly gotten better with the physical stuff. I think we've seen schools actively try to get better. On this, the idea of socially and mental health, I mean, which you work in that field, I feel like there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there's a lot of conversation around schools and students, and there's not really a lot of action that's taken.
Yes, I do agree with that. And I think it really comes from like the higher levels, like, okay, we're gonna talk about this, but then nobody's really sure quite how to implement it because that's not their skill set. And so I would love to see, you know, schools reach out to, you know, other, not necessarily counselors, but other specialties where it's like, hey, we don't have this skill set, let's bring in somebody else. Let's not put more on our teachers, you know, and the people in the building to, you know, handle these things. Even the teachers are handling so much more post-COVID. I would say it's just as hard for them as it is for the kids.
Do these challenges vary? You mentioned earlier, sometimes older students will have a different perspective on something. Do the challenges differ as they get older, or do you see the same kind of challenge just at different levels of intensity?
Good question. I think it starts really small. So you start with, you know, my son is going into second grade. He really didn't experience school during COVID because he was home. And so he doesn't really have that experience. Whereas my going into sixth grade daughter, I mean, she really experienced that. She knows what this is like. And so her thoughts and feelings about school are different than the younger one. And then I have an older daughter, and her thoughts and experiences are different also, just because their developmentals during COVID were different. And so we're running into this, like, yes, I think it's the same issues. The seeds are still the same. The plants are just at different, you know, stages of development, so to speak.
I'll ask about solutions in the next segment. But I'd be curious, and when we get there, be curious to talk about how we help these different students in their specific veins. One of the things that we do know affects our older students potentially a little more than younger ones, but I feel like it's getting younger and younger, is social media.
Absolutely.
Last time you were here, we talked a little bit about it. I feel like this is a conversation we can keep having.
Yes.
What is that impact of social media? Obviously, platforms are, I feel like, growing exponentially.
Yes.
But what kind of impact have you seen, if you've seen one, what kind of impact have you seen that social media has had on these students?
Very frankly, only negative. I have not honestly seen any kind of positive come out of this explosion of social media for kids. And like you said, it's starting younger and younger. And I don't know, I would say, when I talk to parents, I just say no. Like, kind of like the old, just say no to drugs, just say no to social media. There is nothing good that's going to come from that.
Yeah. Can you give some examples about just what you've seen the impact has been?
So I think I'm going to pick a little bit on our young women and our, you know, I would say maybe as far as like late elementary school even.
Wow.
You know, TikTok and different challenges and I've heard of kids as young as 4th and 5th grade doing these TikTok challenges at school where they're destroying school property.
Right.
What on earth good is going to come from that? And so, and then this horrible part of comparison. Sure. Well, you know, they look like this and I don't look like that and I want to dress like that, or, you know, all the way up to grown-ups who are like, I want my house to look as nice as their house does. Yeah,
and to your point, I mean, 4th and 5th grade, I mean, so we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, you were considered super wealthy if you had one of those brick cell phones in high school.
Right.
Back when I was in school.
Yeah.
And so 4th and 5th graders with smartphones on TikTok.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's terrible.
Wow. And to your point, Jess, I think I remember when Facebook really came out. I was in college. You had to have a .edu email address at the time.
Yep.
And so much of what it was, the quote good it was designed for, was college students as they scatter throughout the world. It's a way to link together.
Yes.
And to your point, when you're in elementary school, middle school, you're going to see them every day.
Every day.
That purpose seems to be hollowed out.
Absolutely.
But we've kept the platforms there.
Right.
Yeah. Jess, thank you for that breakdown. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I want to talk about solutions.
Absolutely.
I know you work with a lot of students and their parents. I kind of want to get into what that would look like.
Yeah, sounds great.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Face the Issues is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. You can view our in-house studio productions on demand, or watch what's on the station right now with our 24/7 live stream. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website for more information. Visit lighthousetv.org to stay connected. There you can find out what's currently on the air and coming up. How to watch in your area on cable, satellite, broadcast, or streaming devices. Watch past programs or our live stream. Follow us on social media and learn more about the station, our hosts, and our programming. Lighthouse TV, positively different.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. Jess, thank you again for joining us. When we left off, we're talking specifically about social media, but you really broke down just where some of the anxiety comes in with students returning to school, specifically K through 12. I want to ask you about solutions now. One of the things that's hotly debated in politics is parents' roles in education and what should they be. And obviously, I think most of us, most common sense people are going to say that unless you're being homeschooled, your parent probably should not show up in the classroom and tell the teacher they're teaching this math equation wrong. But we've got, I mean, there's a broad range of students. I mean, I can say as I have Asian parents, they watched every step of everything we did in school. And I had friends whose parents didn't even know that parent-teacher conferences existed, right? In these moments where their school tried to reach out to them, they were unavailable. What should a parent's role be in their kids' education, at least at a minimal level. What have you seen has been successful in parents being involved in that education process?
I think the biggest thing, and I have friends and clients that are teachers, is for parents to be involved in a really respectful way. Respect the teacher's role. The teacher wants to respect you as the parent. And so no teacher I've ever met wants to usurp the parent position. But they really want to come together as a partnership.
Sure.
So that, you know, if something's going on at school, the teacher can call home or send an email, and the parent's like, oh, we'll do what we can here at home. Unfortunately, we don't see as much of that as we probably should, and there's a huge breakdown there that any teacher will tell you about. And a lot of parents who, you know, volunteer in the schools or something like that, they're like, you know, why isn't this being dealt with on multiple levels? And I think that's the solution. When there are problems in school, or when students are struggling with their mental health, or just as basic as, you know, anxiety with going to school, if there isn't this kind of multi-tiered approach, I think the student really can suffer because they need, I mean, to use the quote, you know, it takes a village.
Yeah.
It really, really does. And so kids need these trusted, safe adults in their life, and that starts at home. And it starts with the parents being open and honest enough with themselves and with their students and with the people who have their kids more hours in a day than they do.
Sure. You brought up something interesting about there's a way that parents can do this that's super helpful, but doesn't often happen. And I think we often see parents who are either just unavailable, they're not involved, or they're overbearing. You don't hear, sometimes you hear from them too much, or you don't hear from them, and in the moment there's a disciplinary issue, there's a bad grade, they come, they threaten to sue the school, and so forth. What negative impact? And I think this is so important for parents to hear. We know the positive impact. You just talked about this. Of when they're involved in the right ways, the student is going to do better academically, emotionally. What's the negative impact when parents are either absent from the process or they're overbearing in the process? Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go to overbearing first. So overbearing, there's this term that's been coined, like lawnmower parents. We've evolved from helicopter parents into these lawnmower parents. I did not coin that, I heard that somewhere. But this idea of like parents are going before their kids, mowing the grass way down so that they never have to struggle and they don't have to problem solve and they don't learn how to, you know, work through things that they're going to need in their adult lives. And so there is a huge problem with that when parents are, you know, just like, clear the way, my kid's coming through. You are not doing them any favors down the line. And then for the parents that are absent, you know, kids are looking for guidance, and, you know, whether they will admit it or not, they do want some kind of boundaries because that makes them feel safe. And in a world that feels increasingly unsafe, they need that feeling of safety at home. And they need to feel like they can share their emotions and their feelings. And, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, a counseling session every day after school. My kids will tell you, like, we don't even do that. But this idea of like, you can come to me, you can go to your dad, grandma, grandpa, and this core group of people that are involved in the child's life. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of kids that just don't have that.
And to your point, boundaries is something that we talk about in all these other fields. I mean, budgeting, the idea that putting boundaries on your finances allows your finances to grow better. You know, putting boundaries in relationships, putting boundaries in work, anything like that, actually allows you to excel.
Absolutely.
Last segment, you said that sometimes in the summer there's no structure. There's a lack of boundaries. What can parents do now in the summer? I mean, you know, we're coming close to the start of school year, but what can they do now in the summer, especially if there's a situation where their students aren't in school, they're not in a summer program? What should they be doing to help their student get ready for when we go back?
So one of the things, especially for younger kids, now I know, like, even at my house, bedtime is way later right now because we're doing stuff outside because it's finally cooler, but it's getting onto a schedule. Don't wait until the 2 days before school to be like, all right, bedtime at 8 p.m. and we're going to start getting up at 7. That is not going to work out super well. And it's going to be getting them just not even a bedtime schedule, but, you know, eating at pretty regular intervals throughout the day, because they are not going to be able to like free range graze, you know, throughout their school day. And so I think working on a schedule and actually sticking to it as best that you can is going to be really helpful for young kids, but even for older kids, just to get them, they're not gonna be able to sleep till 10 a.m. Start yesterday doing this idea of like, all right, we're gonna be on a more normal school schedule, just to prepare them. Yeah. Don't throw them to the wolves sleep deprived.
Yeah. Is there a way, or is there any way you recommend as we do that, helping students, it obviously depends on the age, but helping them develop more of their own responsibility in that?
Yes, and I think it's really important for, again, not to be a lawnmower parent, but to be a present parent. So, sometimes things as simple as checklists or like, here are the responsibilities that you have in the morning, and you can do that over the summer too. You need to get up when your alarm goes off. And then, you don't have to lay it out the way you would for like a kindergartner, but like, I expect lunch to be packed and, you to get your breakfast, and not that the parent isn't present, but it's this sense of responsibility. If you pack a can of tuna fish, like literally just a can, and I have seen this, no can opener and no fork or spoon, and like a jar of pickles, that lunch is not gonna work out very well for you. But I'll bet tomorrow, you're going to maybe ask for guidance on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or, so do I want my kids to not eat lunch? I don't, but I also want them to learn that they have to take some sort of responsibility for those kinds of choices.
I read an article recently, a woman said she had raised 3 daughters, all who became top of their fields. And we're talking CEOs, high-powered attorneys. And she said what you said. She said the one thing she did for all of them was when they were old enough to make a decision, they were responsible for that decision from that day forward. So picking out what you wear, and it might be mismatched, but you will let them wear it. Obviously, certain things, if they're going to eat something poisonous, you stop them.
Yes.
But within reason of just, if you can make that decision, you need to start learning how to do that.
Absolutely. I will never forget, he's going to be so embarrassed. My youngest wore a bow tie and like a t-shirt and like snow pants to school in kindergarten. And I was like, okay, have a great day, buddy. And he did. And he wasn't embarrassed, but we let him just be who he is.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. He didn't do it again, though, for the record.
Okay. I was saying, to quote Dr. Who, bow ties are cool. So,
bow ties are cool.
What about with social media? I mean, we talked about in the last segment. What should parents be aware about it? And I mean, how should parents be involved in it?
Yeah. So I think parents need to be integrally involved in everything that their student is doing digitally, whether it's even a school-based iPad or computer, if they have their own iPad or tablets or phones, or it's everywhere. They need to have complete access to seeing what their kids are involved in. There is junk everywhere that they can walk into without even realizing it until they're there. And so also having an open and honest communication, like, hey, if something comes up that seems not right, come talk to me. You're not in trouble. We're gonna talk about it though. Again, social media, just don't. Just hard line on that one. But again, just being involved and then having it be, I guess, just safely, as safe as you can. If you're like, no, my kid's already on it, okay. I don't know that you're gonna take it away, but there have to be parameters and accountability.
Yeah. Jess, we talked about kids having anxiety going back to school. Parents probably have anxiety going back to school.
Yeah.
What do you tell them, parents who are watching this, about their own anxiety?
Yeah, so I'm a faith-based counselor, Foundations Christian Counseling, and a lot of it is we can't live in fear, and we have to trust the Lord that He is going to protect our kids. And it sounds like a really, really Bible-y answer, but it is the truth. And so what we can do is we can help our kids be as set up as possible for to be successful, and to just trust that your kids are where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. You can view our in-house studio productions on demand, or watch what's on the station right now with our 24/7 live stream. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website for more information. Visit lighthousetv.org to stay connected. There you can find out what's currently on the air and coming up, how to watch in your area on cable, satellite, broadcast, or streaming devices. Watch past programs or our live stream. Follow us on social media and learn more about the station, our hosts, and our programming. Lighthouse TV, positively different.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. Jess, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Such an important topic. I'm super grateful for your insights.
Yeah.
As you know, last segment, we always like to get to know our guests a little bit better. We say we want to know them beyond their talking point.
Yep.
One of your passions is gardening.
It is.
And we heard a little bit of that throughout this interview.
Yep.
Why gardening and what is it that you do with it?
So I have a vegetable garden and I have flowers and it makes me so happy. Fun fact, I started all of my plants from seeds this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I made the mistake of starting like all of the seeds because I didn't think they would all take. And they did, and I have about 30 tomato plants.
Oh my goodness.
I'm very excited for them all to, come to fruition. I see a lot of sauce in our future. But there's something about working in the dirt that is very, very grounding. I think it helps me just feel peaceful. There's research that suggests that there's like microbes in the dirt that actually do kind of bring down your blood pressure and are very, very calming. And so I don't love it when it's 100 degrees outside, but
Or where there's bad air quality.
correct. Yeah, we certainly have seen that this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't tell anybody. But I'm already planning my gardening for next year.
So how did you get, is it a lifelong passion or something in
No.
more recent years that?
I would say in more recent years,
Okay.
I like knowing where my food comes from. And so I've taken more of a local approach. And so when I can go out to my garden and pull out a big thing of carrots, like Bugs Bunny, I mean, there's nothing better in that moment than be like, we're gonna have these carrots with dinner and we're gonna cut these herbs to, have with our salad or something like that. It's really rewarding for me.
And you don't, I cheat. I buy the plants already done and then plant them.
That's smart, Sam.
Oh, I don't know. It sounds like it's cheating. It sounds like I should be starting from seeds. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to garden or somebody like me who is probably like a D+ gardener?
Find friends that will help you is my first one. But I would also say that seeds are a really great cheap way to do it. So plants cost more money, but seeds, like if all those tomatoes didn't take, I still would have had plenty with what I started. So I start them in like February and it's cold and my whole front room of my house where it's sunniest, it becomes like the nursery.
And then you move them out.
And then I move them out. Yep.
Oh, what great advice.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's so neat. Well, Jess, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work that you do with our students and their parents.
Yes, thank you so much.
That is our show for tonight. I want to thank Jessica Meade for joining us. And of course, I want to thank each of you for tuning in as well. We hope to see you again right back here next week. My name is Sam Chen. On behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues, thank you and good night.